the trumpet in Zion, Zion. Sound the alarm of my holy mountain. Blow the trumpet.
Hi folks, my perspective here. In my last video clip, some folks said that they didn't understand, or didn't quite get how this video sequence of the midnight sun, how it proves that the earth is flat and that the sun is orbiting around a flat earth. So some people will tell you, no, this video footage is filmed from a man who's standing on a spinning ball and the sun is fixed. He's on a spinning ball and he's filming the sun. So we're going to have a look at these two arguments. Now, because some folks didn't understand it in the last one, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to handle it from a totally different angle. So if you watch the other one, stick with me because there's extra information towards the end of the clip that I'd like to share with you. So let's have a look. Is this filmed from a man on a spinning ball? So let's look. So remember, the sun is fixed at the Earth center and the Earth is leaning over at 23.4 degrees, and the man, he's turning in a circle and he would be forming the sun. So what would he see? Would he see that sequence that we saw? So let's look closer at the man and the Earth if he was on a spinning ball. You see, if the man was on a spinning ball, he's spinning around the North Pole, which is the red arrow. The mountains would rotate around him. You see the numbers rotate around him. But he's always looking forward. He's looking in the same direction. He's not looking behind him. He's facing the same direction. He cannot turn around and form behind him. Right? It's easy to understand. And now look at his angle. You see, he's leaning over backwards, then he leans over sideways, then he leans over forwards, sideways and backwards and so forth. In other words, if we connect that video footage to his orbit, this is what he would be seeing. So he's turning, he's leaning over, now he's upright, and now he leans over to his right, left, and he's upright again, and the sun's on the horizon. Then he leans over to his right. So this footage is vertical with the man. From this angle, I'm just showing it to you from this angle in the animation. So now the issue arises. You see, if we center that image and we lock that image down on the horizon, what is the sun doing? Now look. See, the sun is simply moving up and then down. So the sun is moving up and down. Right? So the sun, if we can use another term, is zigzagging up and down. So what is causing that zigzag? So I'll say no. What's causing that is the tilt, the 23.4 degree tilt of the earth, because the man is leaning backwards and now he's leaning forwards. Then he leans backwards and forwards, that's what's causing the tilt. Well, then you have a big problem. You see, the man, if the tilt, if that is caused by leaning backwards and leaning forwards, you see, he's leaning the same distance to the left and to the right. How can he only register his backwards and forwards motion? You see, the North Pole is in the center and he's spinning around the North Pole. It would have to register the motion left, backward, forward, his complete motion. You can't just film the up and down motion because he's not just moving backwards and forwards. He's moving in a circle. So, the sun then, if he was on a spinning ball, should move in a circle. Now listen carefully. Some people, even in the flat earth community, don't want you to look at this video footage and analyze it. They'll say, no, the sun is too far away for it to show any motion. The point is, it is showing motion in his video clip. The sun is moving up and down. So you cannot argue then that the sun is so far away that it doesn't show any motion. The sun's motion is registered, it's up and down. So that argument goes out the window. So now I've created an animation, exactly what the man would see. Now I've locked a camera onto him. This is the same motion that we saw earlier, and that's simply what the cameraman would see. So the cameraman would see the sun moving in front of him like this. And the earth and the mountains is turning around the man. The numbers there, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're orbiting, they're rotating around him. This is not what we're seeing in the footage. We do not see this. What we are seeing is a man who's turning and he's forming the sun orbiting around his position. So I've lined up when the sun is on the horizon and he's slightly off-centered. So the sun goes up and the sun goes down. So now what is causing the sun to move up and down? See, the sun is moving up and down. So how's that work? What is causing that? Well, it's the sun orbiting around him. Now when I look at this in detail, you see the sun's motion is in a straight line. Watch. The sun's path is in straight lines. If I take those lines out the way, you just don't notice it. So, the man's rotating 360 degrees. Every time it rotates, the sun goes up and down. It forms a triangle. Each side is 12 hours. So each triangle is 24 hours. The base of that triangle is 360 degrees. So over a week, that would make it 2,520. Now if you read your Bible, you'll understand that 7 times is equal to 2520 in Revelation. But that's another issue. So now if I take those triangles, and I put them in a circle, I get this image, I get this pattern. So the top triangle would be a day, right? And each line would represent a week. Right. So it's not difficult to understand. This is the image that many of the people use in secret societies, used to represent the sun. And so why? Well, now if I take that image, the sequence of the sun turning, if I take that sequence of the sun up and down and I put it in an orbit around this man, now there's no trickery here. I've just simply taken that image and I'm rotating it around. Now watch how the sun follows those lines. So after each rotation, the sun now is on the next line and now makes a new triangle. So what does this teach us? That there is perfect precision in the motion of the sun and the moon and the stars. That there is a creator. That is undeniable that there is a creator. And they're trying to hide that from us. You see, they give us nonsense that the earth is a spinning ball. But we know that all the trees grow towards the sunlight. So how does this work? This tree's at the equator. 6 months later, when the sun's on the opposite side, how do trees grow towards the sunlight? I'll tell you, gravity. Gravity makes the tree go upright. The plants grow towards the light. How does that model and the plants, nature that we see around us, how does it fit onto the ball? It does not. We are simply being lied to. They don't want you to see the perfection in creation, because there's a creator, and that is undeniable. So if I look at the pattern in plants, you'll see that plants spiral out when they grow. And this spiral pattern that we see in plants perfectly matches the sun that is orbiting above the plants. You see, the plants are all at the same angle to the sun. The sun's above them, and they all spiral outward. If we take our time and we look at the creation, and it's awesome, we'll start to see the creator's hand. Look at this tree. This tree is split, and it's split in a spiral because it's twisting, because the sun is orbiting overhead. So if we just look at the patterns that we have in creation and put them together, we will see that it all makes sense, because the sun is orbiting above the flat earth. The path of the sun and the moon is overhead on the flat earth. We need to take time to look at creation and to thank the Creator for creating us, and to open our eyes and to show us, and to teach us about His creation. And He will. No doubt about it. So, the image sequence of the midnight sun shows that the earth is flat and the sun is orbiting overhead. So I hope this different perspective and how I handle it this time makes it easier for you to grasp on. Ultimately, I hope it's something for you to think about and to pray about. So cheers, that's my perspective here. In this video clip, I'll be looking at some footage that was filmed in the northern hemisphere near the North Pole. And this is the footage. We know that the guy used a wide angle lens. So So there's some distortion, so we're going to just counter that, make the horizon flat using a wide angle. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at speed, light, and the motion. You see what is actually going on in this footage. Is the earth spinning, or is the man turning around? Now look at the light on the ocean, look where the sun is, look at the shadows, and look how the mountains and everything rotates around the man. See, there's a problem. You see, if this man was in a spinning ball, the shadows and the mountain and the motion wouldn't look like this. What's happening is the sun is turning around the man, is orbiting around the man, and the man is simply turning his camera and pointing it towards the sun. So the earth isn't spinning. The sun is orbiting above. That's why the sun is reflecting on the water as it is. Look at the shadows. So to help us understand this, imagine a train wheel. Right, the wheel turns on its axis. It's got a shaft, and the shaft is fixed off center. Right, so the shaft moves forward, it pushes the wheel, and the shaft comes back and pulls the wheel around. Okay, so the wheel rotates and the shaft is off center. So we're not gonna, don't focus on where the shaft is pointing. Look at the wheel and the position of the shaft, and so what do you see? Right? So basically this is what should be happening with the man who's filming the footage. So do you see there's a couple of issues already that should be happening in that video footage that's not happening. So if we put a man on top of that shaft, the first issue is as the man turns, he'd be crossing the light source, so the blue line in the middle, right, where the sun is, he'd be crossing over the sunlight, backwards, left and right. But in the footage, the light is actually following him. Another issue is, look at the wheel itself. Think about his frame of reference. So from his frame of reference, the wheel should move out in front of him. The horizon can't stay the same. The horizon should rise up and move around him. Right? And he should be moving over the blue line. You see how the blue line, which would be the reflection of the sunlight. Because the sun is fixed. So the issue is the light itself, right, which would be the blue line. From his perspective, everything would be he'd be standing still, and the wheel would be turning around him. So the light would be swinging from his left and to his right, and the landmass should be pushing out in front of him and rotating back around him. And we don't see this in the video clip. You see, what we see in the video clip is that everything is moving in perfect position around him. Another issue is, look at, there's arrows here, so don't look at them, just look at the blue arrow, left and right. You see, as the person moves backwards, he also has to move to his right. In other words, if he moves back 1,000 kilometers, he has to swing to his right 2,000 kilometers. So his frame of reference wouldn't be turning around him, it would be pushing and sliding out towards his right. So, for example, the orange frame is where it started. As he moves around, because he's off center, remember? The landmass would push to his right. Watch the blue arrow on the right, left and right. Do you understand? And the footage doesn't show this. The footage, it's constant. So he's turning, he's not spinning around. He's not spinning off center. Do you understand? So from his perspective, the landmass would push to the right. And it's not, it's actually rotating around him. So the Earth isn't spinning. The man is turning and he's forming the sun, which is orbiting overhead. The second issue is we're going to look at the gold arrows. You see, if he's spinning off center, now watch, the gold arrows would point towards him, right? Because he's off center. So everything in front of him would actually be turning in front of him because he's off center. So watch the arrows. Now they'll turn and face the other way. They're turning in front of him. So if he was spinning around a fixed axis, remember, for everything to turn around him, he'd have to be standing at the North Pole, exactly on the North Pole, so that everything turns perfectly around him. Or, so Earth is standing still, and he's just turning, forming the sun orbiting overhead. So this is what we see in the footage. He's turning, and he's forming the sun, which is turning overhead. So look at the arrows, the gold arrows. They all keep the relative position. As he turns, everything stays fixed in its position to his frame of reference. So it's quite simple, really. Look at the sunlight on the water. I mean, it's just so obvious, you know. I mean, the Earth's flat and he's turning. There's nothing complicated, nothing hard to understand in this. Okay, so he's turning, right? So everything would be relative to his position because he's turning. Right? This is what we see. He's looking at the sun. He's turning. For this to happen and the Earth was turning, he'd have to be standing exactly dead center of the spinning Earth at the North Pole. And we know he's not. He's somewhere in the northern hemisphere, but he's not at the North Pole. Okay, so everything would turn around him and keep the relative position fixed to his position. Right, and that's what we see in the video footage. Okay, whereas if he's off center, right, this is what should happen. You see, the shadows and the light and things in the far distance would have to move faster the further away they are from him. It's actually so simple. And then they would change their position and things in the front of him would be moving slower and things further away would be moving faster because he's off center and he's turning on a ball. So if you speed it up, that's what it would look like. And that's not what we're seeing in the video footage. Right? Everything would be spinning in front of him. Whereas what's happening is everything's rotating around him. So, right, slow down again so that you get it. Okay. But in the footage, you see, if you look at the footage again, that's what's happening. So he's turning, he's looking at the sun, and the sun is orbiting around him. Okay, let's look at the footage again now. Look at the light. Look at the shadows. The sun's not 150 million kilometers away. It's above him and it always stays above him. Watch when the sun moves away. Look how it still hits the surface. That's because of perspective. The sun's always above this guy's head. He's just turning, following the sun. Right? And watch when the sun hits the water. Remember, if he was off center, he'd be moving across the reflection, backwards and forwards. And that's not happening. Right, so it's simple enough. So if he's turning, the shadows would be elongated and they would swing at 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night, late, it would swing the opposite way. Do you understand? In other words, the shadow should cross over like this. And they'll always be elongated. You can't escape that. And we don't see this in the footage. So if he's off center, the shadows further away would be spinning faster. You see? Watch the shadows. Remember, everything further away, it would be spinning faster from his perspective. All orbiting around their own fixed axis. Right? Does that make sense? Just look at the footage, look at the animation. And I mean, I didn't cheat here, just put the light source out, and it is what it is. You know? This is not difficult to understand. Look, you don't need maths for the stuff, really. It's just, it's logical. And we're going to get into a bit of maths later on, and I'll show you how people cheat and trick things. Right, so from a shadow point of view, remember he's off center. He's got his frame of reference, he's looking at the sun. When he gets furthest away, the sunlight can't light up the whole ground and be above and light up the surface. That's what would happen. You see, that's not what we see in the video footage. Everything in that video footage. Now look at this guy. His camera's locked down and he's filming the sun. He's in the same area. He's in the northern hemisphere, close to the North Pole. He's offset around the orbit of the sun, and the sun is overhead. Look at the shadows. How can the sun come back and now move back over his head? And look at the light on the water in the background. It's flat. And the sun is orbiting above this person filming. Right? We just have to learn to look. And this is what we see. He's off center and the sun is orbiting around him. And in his frame of reference, that's what he sees. So if he wasn't turning and watching the sun, the shadows would behave the same as we see in the video footage. We just have to learn to look and think. You know, the education system doesn't teach us how to think. It teaches us what to think, not how to think and reason. And if you do think and reason, well, then you're going to be in trouble. You know, that's just the way the world is. You know, they're going to call you an idiot and a fool and all the rest. But really, you know, we need to think and reason for ourselves. We need to stop trusting the people who rule the system, because we just cattle to them. You know, they kill us and slaughter us and abuse us, and we just allow it to happen because we trust them. And they're the biggest lot of scumbag liars there is. You know, they lie about everything. So use your eyes and think. Just look. The sun's moving above his head. That's because the Earth's not spinning and the sun's orbiting above the person who filmed this. Okay, so now moving on. I mean, this bit is just so silly. I mean, if the Earth's a spinning ball, people all over the world will be spinning at different speeds. So how can people film time-lapse video footage and the sun's moving the same speed? You see, the guy at the equator, his time-lapse will show the sun spinning at a phenomenal speed. It will rise slowly and pick up speed and then set slowly, where the guy at the North Pole, it would be more constant. And another thing is, you know, they'll tell you if you're at the North Pole, you won't see or feel the Earth spin. That's nonsense. If it's turning at the equator, there's a turn at the North Pole. The North Pole can't just stand still. You know, it's silly. It's junk. It's physically impossible. If the Earth's spinning, it's spinning everywhere, at the North Pole and at the equator. You can't say no, at the North Pole it's not turning. It's rubbish. Now, if you're at the North Pole, you'd be getting sick. If you're walking around, you'd fall over. Another issue is the sun. Remember, this guy is turning. He's off center, right? So the landmass will be orbiting around him. So the landmass would be pushing back and forward. Can't keep the same distance. He'd be moving over the light. And another issue is the sun from his frame of reference would be zigzagging. Now people say, no, the sun's 150 million kilometers away. You won't see it move. The point is, with reference to his frame of reference, which is the horizon, how would the sun move with the horizon? That's the issue. The sun would zigzag. So when I look at this, some people say, no, it won't zigzag. And they're saying, well, the man is turning 360. Oh, okay, so we're just going to simplify this. You see, the sun would actually zigzag backwards and forwards, and we're going to prove it. We're going to look at the arguments and simplify it. All right, so it's all these things. The light, the landmass pushing forward. Remember, everything would be turning in front of him, and the sun would be zigzagging in front of him. We put all this together, we understand that the man is not living on a spinning ball. He's standing on a fixed earth, and the sun is orbiting him. In other words, go into your kitchen, get a plate. Put your finger on the plate and turn the plate around. Your hand isn't turning 360 degrees. Your hand's facing the same direction. How do we know this? Well, because if your hand turned, you'd break your wrist. So you're using your hand faces the same direction, you're in the same position, and you're turning the plate. So some people will say, yeah, but the hand is fixed to the plate. So if the plate turns, your arm and your hand must move 90 degrees. Well, it's not like that. You'd break your arm and your hand. Your hand isn't turning 90 degrees. You can't add on the 90 degrees and then minus it off again. Another way to illustrate this point is the person is standing on the same side. So a person who's on the plate looking at you is not turning 360 if he's facing the same direction. He doesn't need to turn 360 degrees, and we're going to prove it in another way. Like, for example, on this train wheel, the shaft doesn't rotate 360, it's just facing the same direction. Its position X and Y is changed, that's all. Because if the shaft did turn 360, the engine would break. The whole mechanism would break. Think of a plotter that the architects use, or a laser cutter. The laser cutter doesn't turn, but it can cut out a circle. So what's happening, its position X and Y is changing. It's the same thing as the man who's standing on the earth if it was spinning looking at the sun. His position X and Y is changing in space. The cutter, the laser head, doesn't need to rotate. Okay? That makes sense? So don't get caught up in this, the man has to turn, because he simply doesn't. It's nonsense. Okay, so let's look at the footage again. Right. Just look. It's simple. Look at the light, look at the shadows. Right, and we see that the man is turning. That's why the mountains and everything around him is keeping its fixed relative position to him, because he's turning. The earth is not turning. Remember, for him to turn like this and everything has to be in perfect relation to him, he'd have to be standing dead center at the North Pole, and he's not. So what this shows is that the earth's not spinning and the man is turning. Look at the light. Oh, this is a giveaway. Look how the light reflects on the snow in front of him, right in front of him. Maybe if this was a ball, the light would be behind the other side. The light can't bend around and illuminate the snow in front of this man. It's just silly. Look at the clouds, flat. Land is flat. The earth is flat and is not spinning. And it is what it is. It's hard for some people to accept. But if you just look and think, you'll see it. It's as plain as daylight. The earth is flat and it's not spinning. And we just need to realize that the system we're living in is corrupt, and wicked people rule the system. And World War One, World War Two, Vietnam War, all the wars that we've had from Cambodia, the wars in Africa, show us that we're being manipulated, that they're consolidating their power and they want to rule the world. And they don't care how many people they kill, how much stuff they destroy, how many lives they take, what they destroy. They're pumping chemtrails in the Earth's atmosphere. They don't care. It's absolute power at any cost. You and I don't matter to these people. It is what it is. But yet people still trust the governments and think, oh, well, the government's got my back. Yeah, against the wall it has, yes. You just cannon fodder, man. So, back to the image. Look at the light on the water. It's flat. And the man is turning, looking at the sun. Right? It's simple enough. Same with this footage. We just have to look and think.
Humans, for the most part, don't have a clue. They don't want one or need one either. They're happy. They think they have a good bead on things.
Well, why the big secret? People are smart. They can handle it.
The person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew that people were alone on this planet. Imagine what you know tomorrow.
We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
A group of social criminals, these people in the space program. Nassholes, I'd call them.
So you want to find the farthest point from that center. And it turns out sea level at the equator is farther away from the center of the Earth than sea level near the poles. It has nothing to do with global warming and melting of the ice caps.
Why is that?
Because Earth, we know it spins once a day. Yes, thank you. 3 people know how long a day lasts here.
Good for row number 2. They're off to a great start.
So you spin, you know, when you spin pizza dough, it kind of flattens out.
Yeah.
Gets wider in the middle. And so Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning. And it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped.
Yeah.
So it turns out the pear-shapedness is bigger than the height of Mount Everest above sea level.
Hi folks, my perspective here. In this short clip, I will be using perspective to prove that we are being lied to and being deceived about the heavens or the universe that is above us. So our perceptions of what we think the universe is based on deceit and lies. And with simple visual observations, we can prove to ourselves that the entire system we live in is based on deceit for the purpose of enslaving us mentally, so that we go along with a system that is corrupt and enslaving us. So we are always shown images from the outside of the planet spinning around the sun. So keep in mind that our perspective isn't from here, but we are actually on one of those balls spinning around the sun. And so is this real? Is this what we see from Earth? Yes, so they'll tell you that you are part of the Milky Way galaxy. So this galaxy is millions of kilometers, millions of light years from side to side. So these aren't real images because who took the photograph? So they'll show you these images and say you are here, or you're here, or you're here. Different places. These images aren't the same. It's a speculation. So now you have to ask yourself, well, if you're on the spinning ball, our sun is minute compared to the core of this galaxy. How come NASA, when they went to the moon, or anybody's been in space, never taken a photograph of it? We have images from it far away, but from close up, we don't see images of it. Not from any of NASA's probes do they ever show the Earth with our galaxy behind. You never see this. This galaxy is so huge and so massive, you've never taken a photo of it, never seen it from space. And from Earth, you're spinning around. The core of this galaxy is 1,000,000 times bigger than our sun. It'll block out the sun. We'd never see it from Earth. Why is that? Well, it's because it's a lie. Yes, so NASA has been to the moon many times. They're always in space. How is it that they can't see this galaxy? It should be in your face. So huge that you can't miss it. And NASA said that when they went to the moon, they can't remember if they saw any stars. Well, you've been lied to big time. So what do we see from Earth? Well, here's some time-lapse images of the starry sky. And we'll notice that the moon travels at the same speed as the stars. Well, how is that possible? You see, the moon is much closer to the Earth than the stars. So as the Earth spins, your angle between yourself and the moon would constantly be changing. Remember, the stars are 1,000,000 miles behind. And you are spinning at 1,600 kilometers an hour, hurtling through space at thousands upon thousands of kilometers an hour. So, the moon cannot be moving at the same speed as the stars. So obviously, we're being lied to. We're being misled about the Earth and the universe and the solar system around us. This is not real. So how is it, if if we see the streak of that Milky Way galaxy in a night sky, it's nighttime. 6 months later, we're on the opposite side of the sun, and the night is on the opposite side, facing away from the galaxy. How is it that we can film that streak, that dark rift in the night starry sky? We film it all year round. It becomes evident that we are being tricked deliberately. So let's look at some time-lapse images of the night sky, of the stars in the sky. But what do you notice? Look carefully. There's something that is staring you in the face. It's so obvious. You don't see it. Look carefully. The stars have the same perspective. The perspective is two-dimensional. There is no depth to the stars from your perspective. So what does that mean? Well, let's have a look. To help you understand what I'm saying, is imagine if you were on a spinning ball and out in front of you was a giant computer keyboard. See, the keys are all at the same angle. So what would you see from Earth? Visualize it. See, the keyboard would be three-dimensional. It means as you turned and rotated, this is what you would see. The angle of the keyboard would change as you spun around. In other words, your number keys would turn away from you, and your shift and the caps lock would be on the one side, and they would rotate around. But what we are seeing is the keyboard head on and rotating flat head on. So there's no depth in the keyboard. Perspective tells us that the stars are all on the same plane. You're not spinning because you see the same angle of that keyboard. It means the universe is spinning. You're standing still. This is what you're seeing. And there's no depth in that night sky. None whatsoever. The stars maintain their same position as they rotate around you, around the Earth. So the stars, they're on a flat plane, the same as the Earth. The Earth is flat. You see, if the stars were on a dome, the stars on the horizon would actually stay on the horizon as the dome spun around you. We don't see this. So the sun and moon and the stars are on a plane relative in depth to each other. And above that is a dome. Straight to the point. These people that are spinning around, their center axis, if that was fixed, the horizon would stay on the same level for them. So depending on how high or how low they were, the trees and the grass couldn't spin above their heads, would stay on the horizon. It would be the same if the universe was a ball and spinning around you. Yes, so what we see is we see a flat plane. The stars are all on the same plane and they are rotating above our heads. That's why they rise up from the horizon and rotate around. Many years ago, sailors used the stars as a map. But if the map was a round ball, how would they be able to plot their course? It has to be flat. Yes, so they'll tell us that all the planets orbit around the sun, all fixed on the same plane. How's that? You have all the space around you, yet why doesn't the planets orbit in 3D space? They should be. Gravity will keep them in the same position as they orbit. So why is that? It's because, let's look for example the Earth. The Earth's on the exact same orbit around the Sun. If you change the angle of that orbit path, watch the Moon and watch the Earth. See, the Earth's spinning at the same speed, the Moon is spinning. Now watch the Moon. Well, the Moon would do a loop in the sky. So would the Sun. As soon as you change that orbit path and you angle it and that orbit path is rotating around the Sun, as it would do in space, well then the game is up. Because all the seasons and the times and everything wouldn't work. So they have to show you all the planets orbiting the Sun, all on the same plane. What are the chances of that? That's not science. That's magic. That's sorcery. We don't see this from Earth. Now you know that if you've got a balloon, that the air pressure pushes outward equally. I take this balloon, put the Earth inside, put that balloon in a vacuum. How can the air stay inside? And when you have a high pressure system, it doesn't push the gas out, it just pushes it around the ball. It's rubbish. Yes, so gravity will keep the air pressure and all the clouds and everything stuck to the Earth. And outside that Earth is a vacuum. Yet a bird can fly, and a butterfly can fly, and we can walk with ease while this ball is spinning around the Sun. And we don't feel it. We don't feel it because it's not real. It's a lie. Yes, so as the Moon orbits the Earth, and as it gets closer to the Sun, on the Sun side between the Earth and the Moon, it doesn't speed up. It travels at the same speed. And the Sun's gravity doesn't slow the Moon down. See, this is mindless garbage. When you think about it, it doesn't work. So they get you to accept it through pride. They'll tell you that if you don't believe this model, well then you're stupid. And so pride causes you to think, well, my eyes tell me different, and everything around me, my senses tell me different. I don't want to look stupid, so I better accept this. Well, you're a fool if you accept it, because it doesn't work. When NASA gives us images like this, you just need to use your eyes. You don't need maths. You don't need to bring your calculator out. Look, Mars's atmosphere is less than 1% of the Earth's. And Mars has got an atmosphere. How is it possible? We know that when the sun shines, a lot of the radiation we get is because of the atmosphere. This is an image taken on Earth with a shift in the RGB channels. That's all it is. Then NASA gives us this image of the Moon orbiting the Earth. This is supposed to be taken from 1,000,000 miles away. Think, that's impossible. The Earth is traveling at a phenomenal speed around the Sun. How did they do a time lapse? How did they track the Earth? How can you zoom 1,000,000 miles on an object, on a 4K image, and still keep the object in the center of your lens? So we know that it takes the Moon 30 days to orbit the Earth. That's what we are taught. So the Earth cannot be spinning at the same speed as the Moon. forgetting the junk that nature shows us. The moon and the earth are orbiting in line and connection with each other. This is fake. I mean, look at the moon. I mean, for goodness sake. I mean, just use your eyes. It means the sun should be directly behind you. Where's the shadow of the moon? Yes, so if Apollo is a god, why is he faking it? Why does he need humans to shoot him up into the night sky? Well, Apollo's making a monkey out of you.